you have to realize, I don't know about these words. I don't like to put you in an iron-handed position that you're trying to, but you are, what power and what authority do you have? I've told you a long time ago to grow a backbone. I don't want to tell you to take an approach that says, get the stink out of my house and give me that coat. And that way. I don't want to tell you to pack a suitcase, etc. But I do want you to realize that, first of all, you are still the parent. You are the parent. And you do have the authority. You know what is one of the biggest powers and authorities you have? Starts with an E. It's not energy. You don't have it as that of your parent. It cannot be energy. Don't you?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is your home, and you are providing the clothing, the meals, and everything else, that way. So, don't use it as a club, but use it as reality. The reality is, if you're behind and probably you have some conflicts over this, but use it as reality that you're in charge, and there's some things about your behavior and what's going on here that are not right, not acceptable, and they're going to have to change, and we're going to work together, and we're going to figure out a plan, and they are going to have to change no matter how drastic the plan has to get. Now, we can start with this kind of a consequence, and we can move to this level, to this level, to this level, to this level, till we find one that's going to work. And we are willing to go as far as we have to go to make it work. Now, to me nowadays, if you're going to withhold privileges, okay, let's just leave out any kind of corporal punishment or things like that. I would say to you, I'm trying to get to your level, not my old school, and say the withholding of privileges would be a big one. If I watch kids doing this, I would say that would be a killer for some. It would seem like if I watch kids. Remember the lady I told you that cleans my teeth who said 1 minute late, the car was gone for a week? I mean, if I'd have lost my car for a week, I would have died. But if I was 5 minutes late and lost it for 5 weeks, I'd have towed the line. Now, maybe your kids aren't old enough to have cars, but I know this one is big. And if that's a potential, make it tough. Don't be soft. Be tough. Be tough about that one. I mean, don't say, your phone has a timeout for 2 hours. 2 hours? Your phone has a timeout for 2 weeks. And the next time, your phone has a timeout for 2 months. I mean, are they going to die? No, they only think they're going to. There's a vast difference between dying and think you're going to die. That way. I just wish I could give you more ideas, but the day you lived in, the day I lived in, and raised my kids are different, and you have to know the withdrawing of privileges, which ones are going to hurt your children more than me, because they were different. I could go back and I could reconstruct it for what would have hurt my kids more, but it wouldn't be apropos to you. But you got a brain, use it. But the big thing is find your backbone. Find your backbone. Don't be willy-nilly and soft. I mean, the withdrawing of privileges is not hurting them physically, okay? And it's not going to kill them, but you definitely want them to get the point that way. And so those kind of things, you have to go back and win the battle, but you have to fight it a different way than the newborns, that you're going that way. And you have to do it. You have to do it. You can't let them, if you're convinced before God that some of these things need to be changed, that's God speaking to your heart, not Larry. But you might have to change a few things about yourself and your approach too. I'm big on growing a backbone. You're in charge. You're in charge. You are in charge. And you don't have to raise your voice. We confuse this, raising our voice, that you're the toughest because you raise your voice. When I taught in school, I was a head football coach, and in that school, myself and my assistants ran every study hall in that building. You know why? We were the loudest and the meanest. What a reputation! What a reputation! We could run law and order because we could yell louder than anybody in the school. You know what that means? We could scare kids more than anybody. I mean, that's a really good approach. That's a real compliment. Well, that's okay maybe in that situation, but it's probably not the one you want in your home. It's not the one you want in your home. But there can be no question that mom and dad are in charge. Mom and dad need business. Well, a little bit more. So if I think anything else, just go on. Let's look at number 6 for a minute, because it has to do the same thing. And I just need to fill in some things here. And it's again on training the kids. Let me fill in the blanks and then make a comment, and then want to finish up a little bit on some more on this chore sheet. The discipline, I'm not talking about an individual discipline. And this one, I'm talking about the total training, your total training. You're disciplining your children, everything you're building into their life, their training of a child. And this is what I call that type of training. You change unacceptable behavior. All you have to do is let a child go, and they'll exhibit unacceptable behavior in a hurry. And it has to be changed to a acceptable behavior. And your goal is going to be to develop biblical character. Okay? Now, you change unacceptable to acceptable so that you can develop biblical character by whatever method you can find. And I didn't put by whatever method. But you'll change the consequences until you find the one that works. Okay? Now, let me share something with you. If you find a child is exhibiting an unacceptable behavior in your home, all right, and you have a consequence for that, and the next day you have the same thing and you have the consequence for that, and the next day you have the same offense and you did the same consequence, and the next day or the next week you have the same offense, you did the same consequence, and the next week you have the same behavior, misbehavior, and do the same consequence. Guess what? You have the wrong consequence. You have the wrong consequence. So you change the consequence. You go to B, C, or D. They ought to be firmer, or i.e. tougher, or i.e. firmer.
Uglier. There you go.
I'm trying to be nice, which is, for me, by nature, almost impossible. That way, okay? You've got to train. You've got to train. My first job was an assistant principal at a school. I had about 750 kids, and they gave me one job. I had all the discipline. And I was in a day and age in the early 1970s where I was allowed to have something in my bottom right drawer, which was about that long, and it was made out of wood, and it had a handle, and I was allowed to use it. I only had one boy. I only used it on boys. I was not going to fight that battle. Of course, it was mostly only boys that came to it anyway. I only had one boy that came back a second time. That consequence was enough. And they all knew in that school, you did not want to go back for seconds. It wasn't like Mom's mashed potatoes and gravy. You did not want a second helping. One kid, and this poor kid I hesitate this, it's not a good word, he was just too dumb to know any better, and I'm sure he's in prison today. That way. But your consequence has to be changed. Your consequence is not working, and you're trying to change an unacceptable behavior to an acceptable one by whatever consequence will move that. Now, you don't have to go from A to Z the first time. Now, there may be certain offenses. That you and your parental mate will decide are way off the charts the first time, that are going to call for a very severe punishment the first time. There are those, and let's just throw out, say, blatant lying by a child ought to be taken out of them harshly, that way. And there maybe are a few others too that way. But in the training process, if it's unacceptable, you got to change it to acceptable by the consequence that'll get it done. And when you discover your consequence isn't working, change the consequence. Change the consequence. All right? That way. Until you find the one. Now, got a few minutes. Got this one that we put down for chore sheets, and I know that few of you at least have wanted to talk about the chore sheet. And should we pay the little cherubs for doing this work? And we broke it down by 2 to 3 year old, 4 to 5, 6 to 7. Now, I'll tell you up front, and you don't have to buy mine at all. I believe that part of being a family is pitching in and helping with some chores that are just part of being a family. Some folks would believe that you ought to be paid for some of these. I ran into one and I didn't get a chance or didn't know the person really well enough to ask them more questions about, they pay their kids a salary. I'll mention that at the end. It was really kind of a cool concept though, because they thought it through. Look at real quickly at 2 and 3s. You got to be able to put your toys in the box, the books on the shelves, the dirty clothes in the clothes basket, throw trash away, carry the firewood. Kind of a throwback. Fold the washcloths, fetch the diapers and the wipe, dust the baseboard. We don't dust our house anymore unless I write "I love you." Then we decide maybe we ought to dust. We have all light furniture except one dark piece, and that's where I write it. And below it, she writes, "Shut up." No, she doesn't. She writes, "Go to your room. I got time out." Except for the firewood. What do you think? Can your kid find the dirty clothes basket? The object is that they get them in. Teach them to be basketball players. Take a shot.
Yeah.
How old was it Nathan or John? 2. He was about 2, wasn't he? Kathy says, "Go get your blue shirt and your red shorts and a pair of underwear." And so he went. He had to pull out the bottom drawer, and then the next drawer, and then the next drawer, and then he had to crawl all the way up to the top shelf to get them and get them down and push them all back in and put them on. I think he was about 2. All right, look at the 4 and 5. Gee, 4-year-old. That 4 and 5-year-old needs a union rep. He's got a. Now, unless you train them, they're going to look like a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old did them now. Put that all in context. Wipe up spills. That's what we ought to teach the 2 and 3-year-old, to wipe up your spills. They have more of them. Make their bed. I'm waiting for you to throw chairs. Okay. Sort the clean silverware. Huh. Prepare simple snacks. So the kids got to know the difference between peanut butter and jelly there. Vacuum. Ooh. Handheld. Dry and put away dishes. That's why plastic was invented. They ought to disinfect the doorknobs. They're the ones that get peanut butter on them. All right. I'm not trying to sell you on any of these, but in case you didn't know, there's some place you can start here. Be the 6 and 7-year-old. Empty the dishwasher. Now I know how old I am. I'm 6 or 7. I empty the dishwasher. Match clean socks. Well, who matches the dirty ones? Rake the leaves. We live in Wyoming. Send them to the neighbors. We live on top of a hill. We never touch a leaf. Beverly didn't like peel the potatoes and carrots. She thought they'd peel their knuckles.
They make really good gloves on Amazon that you protect you from
You
that.
protect you from that, yeah. Okay. All right. 10 and 11.
There's 8 and 9 years, you forgot.
8 and 9 years? I forgot the 8 and 9 years. Yeah. Change the light bulbs. You try to change those little diamond-shaped things in the kitchen. That'll test your religion. That'll test Ephesians 4:29. I've called those things everything but blessed. I don't think I'd wish that on anybody, let alone a poor 8 or 9-year-old. Hang the clean clothes. Spray off. Put the groceries away. Scrambled eggs, that's easy. Just drop a whole dozen. How about 10 and 11? Now the moms are getting excited on 10, 11, 12 and up there. Yeah, let's get some of this going. Clean the countertop, clean the kitchen. Prepare simple meals. There we go. Sweep out the garage. I like 12. Mop the floors. That looks like my list.
It says 12 and up.
Hey. Settle down over there. I want to ask you about one. About in the middle of 12 and up, it says, get the groceries with a list. What do you think?
Yeah.
Only if they get the cheapest one.
Lots what?
Only if they get the cheapest one.
Now, I got to tell you, I know a family in our church that does that. They have a fixed amount per week for groceries, and the child wanted to have salmon. They said, okay, but that's what you got for a week's budget and a week's groceries. Well, then the child saw the price of salmon and figured out, well, we are going to have salmon, but the rest of the week we're going to have mac and cheese.
Yeah, there you go.
Now number one down there is the word on the blank, inconvenience. Okay, why? You got to teach it all. You have to teach it all. Now here's the question: Does allowance or money? What do you think? Come in here anywhere? Jill, you're going this way most of the time, but a couple times you went this way. Or should they just learn?
In our house, we don't get paid for doing these things, so neither do they.
Marquise doesn't pay you?
No,
You bum.
we do
Talk to
pay.
my financial advisor.
I am. That's what I'm going to do.
I was gonna say, we do create special projects for them to do to get paid for. Special projects to them, things we still need them to, things that need to get done, but maybe are not everyday chores, and so
All right.
we can pay them.
Like that? Definitely like that. What do you do, Jill?
Similar. There are certain things they have to do.
Right.
And then other things that they can opt to do for pay.
All right.
So,
We gave a stipend based on how old they were from the time they were about 4 or 5. So 4-year-olds got $4 and like an 8-year-old get $8. But that was just part of an allowance, but we made it very clear that we're living in a house, we didn't get paid to do that. We contribute as a family because we all made the mess and we all clean it. And then the second was the extra.
And your 4-year-olds, you get $4? I'm 79.
No, well, it's a month, per month.
Would you pair up after class? I'm 79 and I get $15. You cheapo.
But from that, they had to tithe and they had to save. So they had 10% to church and 10% to savings as well.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Last year, Hannah and I read a book called Debt Proofing Your Kids. And so I think there needs to be some sort of economy in place so that they can learn how to manage money. Like other families here, there are things that are not paid. There are things that are paid. We're in a position to give an allowance. We give 50 cents per year. I mean, 50 cents.
This class is brutal. Adam, this class is brutal.
They get 50 cents a week for every year old they are. So Isaiah's 11, so he gets, I think, $5.50.
You guys are right on. First, they have to learn a work ethic, and that is you're part of a family. There are things you need to learn to do to help. We are in this together. Money management is another place our whole world and youth and college-age kids and millennials are just totally ignorant on. And so your teaching is good, money management. And certainly I trust you, and I know you as a group well enough to know that biblical money management is in there that way. And I think your combination is just excellent. The one I saw, the guy has a salary, he definitely pays a salary to the kids, demands a checkbook, and once a month, there are bigger projects involved that they have to do. And each month they have to show a balanced checkbook and make partial payment on their clothes and their phone. So they are really learning some life skills too. It's just carried further. Now the salary would probably be a little more because the demand of clothes and partial payment on the phones are in there. And I thought that was very interesting
That
too.
was older children.
They are little older children. They're not college age though.
Teenagers.
They're teenagers. They're all teenagers.
Older teenagers.
Because I saw it because they were scrambling the night before to balance their checkbooks and everything. There's an accountability day that they have to come to dad and everything. That's a local pastor in town.
The biblical giving.
Biblical giving, yeah. That's why I said teaching them biblical giving, of course. The tithing part, the sacrificial giving as God has prospered you, et cetera, et cetera. It's really important, but I do believe that, just you are part of a family. We are a family together. And it is true. Mom and Dad just work very, very hard to provide. And they don't get anything for it. And they do it with a willing heart. You need the same. You need to pitch in and you need to do it with a willing heart that way. So, like I say, these were all simple things today, but I think they're very important. I really want to encourage you to work on the words on your home, and I want to encourage you to work on your words. I want you to think about this expectations, accountabilities. I want you to think about if you're late on this, jumping back in. You can't jump back into the 2-year-old level, but you can. You can make mid-course adjustments. You can, because God is able. God is able. I think, I'll have to check this in the next couple of days, I think we're going to go Proverbs. Proverbs has much to say, and there's I think we could spend a whole hour, which isn't really much when it comes to Proverbs, but on a lesson in Proverbs, early Proverbs. First 8-9 chapters all start out, my son, just giving instruction, and it's really good. So we may go that way next week. I realize we got to talk about some other things before we have to talk about education. Education. I'm not going to tell you what school to send your kid to, but I'm going to tell you some things. I have some strong feelings that way. Yes, Ben.
Could you ever give us the fill in the blanks on number 4?
Fill in the blanks on number 4.
Or we just
Shut up.
Yes. Oh, that was what.
Shut up, stupid, fool, whatever. Please, thank you. Do you understand?
Okay, I got it.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let's pray. Father, you're so good to us. And sometimes it looks so overwhelming, but it's not. Children are a blessing. They are. And they're a challenge. They're a challenge too. But God, you're so good to us. We want to thank you for our children. We want to thank you for everyone. The one that complies readily, the one that challenges us. God, they're all gifts from you. So give us wisdom. Give us wisdom. We thank you for the input of these wonderful people who brave it and come here every week. God, just pray for our next service and pray for Jake as he opens the word to us. Challenge our hearts again through your word. We'll give you praise and thanks. Ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. Thank you.